Welcome to part 2 of EX11 ran image array, and I'll just go through the coding using Atom. I haven't used Atom a whole lot, so I'll be new to this, so hopefully it'll help you out a little bit. I'll close up some of these welcome things in here, all these untitled, the welcomes, telemetry. I'll close all this up and I'll go File, Add Project folder, and I'm going to add the one that you should download for this, which is going to be EX11. So I'm going to go into my 235, and you'll be able to get this off of eLearning. I have it in my notes, so I'm going to go down to EX11 ran image array, and I'm going to open it up, and here it is, and it should be, this is what it should look like. I'll just have some comments in there. I took all the code so you can have the fun of actually writing the code, seeing how it works out. You're going to have images in there too. There's 3 images in there: paper, rock, and scissors. And what you're going to do is start writing some code. Now the HTML should be pretty much done for you. We have HTML, we have head tags, we have title. I don't think there's any styles you're going to have to put in here. We'll just call it image array is the title that's going to show up in your tab or in your window on the browser. Once you get into your body tags, the only thing we have in here is an H2 that says seed random image. You're going to put your buttons here, and then you're going to have a PID. And like I said, this could be div ID if you want. You know, it doesn't have to necessarily be a paragraph. What matters is that it has that ID name image here. So even if this is a div, that would be fine. So you could use that as well. You can make it a div if you don't necessarily want it a paragraph. Actually, div is a little more generic. So that's the HTML. So the only HTML you're going to have to put in here is putting in the buttons. And we'll just use the on-click buttons. I know we did the add event listener, but we'll just do the on-click because that'll be easier since we have it all in one file right now. In CodePen, we had them in separate areas, so we had to do the add event listener just in the JavaScript area, not in the HTML. But we have everything together, so we'll do that. And I have some comments here. We see where the JavaScript starts. It starts here. Again, not sure why it goes orange to blue kind of thing, but I'll find out why it's doing that. But that's our JavaScript. Everything will go in between here. I have comments to kind of guide you. Set up the image files in an array to be used. Now what we're going to do, and this is the first time I'm doing this in Atom, so we'll see how it goes, but you're going to basically set up an array. Now an array is going to be a variable, so it's going to be var, and we'll just call it, you could just call it image array. It doesn't matter what I called it on the other one. Just call it image array, and then you're just going to say new, and it's going to be array. And you can see it's coming up here. And you could highlight it, but usually it has a capital letter here, you know, but you can use the small a for array because it's saying that's okay. And you just need the parentheses around that, and I'm going to put a semicolon to finish that off, so it's new array. And then I'm going to put the images in the array. So what I'll do, now you have to use this name, image array. So if that's the name you're using, stick with it. And I'm using camel case, and I'll use image array, and I'll use my brackets, and the first one will be 0. And what I'll do is I'll say equal, and then what I'm going to do is do images slash, because I know in brackets it just kind of starts typing it, but I guess I'll do rock first. I'll just do rock. I don't know if that's coming up. Rock.jpg. I'll have to find out if there's a shortcut for this coming in. And I'm just going to do image. Now I do want to do this in quotes, so I wasn't doing that originally, so make sure I put that in quotes. And it'll show up in the bright green, at least what I'm doing here. So I'll do image array 0, and I'll put spaces on either side of the equals to make it look nice. So image array, the first index, which is 0, is going to be images slash rock.jpg, and make sure it's exactly what's there. Like I said, I'll find out if there's a better way to do that. Now from here, I could copy these, and we'll just change the file name. So there's no reason to type all that again. So I'll do the second one, and this one's going to be paper. And it's going to be index 1, and then I'll copy this again, and I'll do the last one, which is going to be scissors, and that's going to be index 2. So we're going to have, so our length is 3. We have 3 elements in here, so we have a length of 3. So you could always do a length in there. And here's the show image function. You know how to do a function, so we can start off the function. We'll just say function, and then we'll do show image, and with the parentheses just like that, and we'll start our opening bracket. Now it put the bracket here right after it, so I'm going to cut that and put it right at the end of my script, because this is where it should go at the end, I believe. So I'll paste that there, and then all my colors seem okay now. So everything is going to go inside of this. Now in our script, this is outside the function. So we just put this array outside the function. That's okay. But what we are going to put inside here, and I'll move this up a little bit. It says generate random number. Now what we're going to do, and it's a variable, so you're going to do var, and I usually like to call it something like random, or you could call it rn or whatever you want. So I'll just call it random because I think I've done that in the past. I'll say random equals, and what we're going to do, it's going to be math with a capital M. Remember, it's math.random. That makes the random number with parentheses like that. Okay, now that just makes a random number from 0 to 1, not including 1. Now we want to multiply it by 3, or the length that we have here. So how many we have, that's what we're going to multiply it by. So we can multiply it by 3. And then before we do that, we also want to wrap this thing around a math.floor. That's the thing that rounds it down. And we'll put this around, I believe it goes around everything. I believe. We'll see if it works. If it doesn't work, but I'm doing this by heart, so I think the math floor goes around everything after we multiply it. And so that should round down, and it is a capital M and a small f, capital M and a small r to do that. So this is generating a variable, random number, so it should be either 0, 1, and 2. That's all that should do. And what we want to do with that random number, and it says display the image in the target area. So what we want to do now is we want to basically use like an inner HTML. Now this, I don't know why this says it twice here. I think this should hide it. This is probably the one that hides it down here, because we're going to have another function that does that. And we got to be careful where our function's ending, because we're going to do, this is all just the show image function. So this is the one where we actually want to kind of plug it in here. So what we're going to do, and if you remember on the other one, we did something called var x equals, and you could use anything. And it's going to be document, and then the ID that we're going to use is image here, and we do put that in quotes, so it's image here, and I'm using camel case, so it has a small I and a capital H. So document.get element by ID image here, and that should be it. So that's what x equals, and then we're just going to take x for the next line, or we're actually going to say x dot inner HTML, because it uses the capital like that, and then we're going to say equals, and this is where we have to put in that tag. So I'm going to put, I'll put a space here just to separate it out a little, because I have lots of room, and I'll use the single quote, and I'll start off by doing image source equals, and then I'll put the double quote. So I have all the quotes that I need, and actually let me close off this quote here. And I have all the quotes that I need except for the inner ones here, so let me just spread this out a little bit. So this is where our variable is going to go. So what we're going to want is have image array, except instead of a number of 0, 1, or 2, I could just highlight this, and I'll just copy this, and I'll put that in here, and I'll get rid of any extra spaces. And image array 2, and you can see it's green because I don't have my quotes right yet, and it's not going to be 2, it's going to be random, so I can copy this and put random inside there. So that's what's going to be in there, except in order to concatenate this together, we're actually going to do a single quote and then a plus. And then over here, we're going to do a plus and then a single quote. And notice when it put a single quote, it put 2 there, so I want to make sure I get rid of that. And now everything looks okay. This is green. The stuff that's kind of the HTML stuff is green. So I have single quote, double quote, single, and I have single quote, double quote, single, and I have my pluses in here, image array with the square brackets, random. So it should be putting that in there in this image here area. So that's what should happen when it runs this function. Now I guess I don't need this. I can move up because I think this is where it ends. So this is all the function here, and I'll even backspace so I don't have it so spread out. So this is all the one function here, and I'll move this down. So this is my show image function. Now remember, we got to put a button up here, so it says put buttons here. So you could either go underneath it or remove that, and we're just going to use the button tag, and it's bringing up the button tag, and we're going to do button, and we don't have to use any ID but we do have to use the on click, and here's on click coming up here equals, and we're going to put the function in there. So I'll just put the function right in the quotes in the on click, and I'll close up that opening button tag, and then I got to put the label on it. So the label for the button is just going to be show image, and then I'll use my closing, and that's coming up. So it's showing me shortcuts for some of this. It's not showing all the shortcuts. So like I said, I'm still new with Atom, so I'll get used to it a little bit. And so that'll be the show image button, and we're going to see how this works. And now that, notice that blue thing means it's not saved. So I'm going to save this now and see if this thing works, and also see if I can do the open in browser. And I'm going to just kind of right click and do open in browser. See what this looks like, and there's my show image, and let's see how it works. And it's not working. Let's see why it might not be working. Here's our function, show image, and we have the opening bracket, closing bracket, so that's okay. We have a random number, var random equals math.floor math.random times 3, that looks okay. Our var x equals document.get element by ID image here with a semicolon. I don't have a semicolon at the end here, which could be a problem. That could create a problem there. So that's one thing I see. Let's check out my script. My script looks okay. My script tag. So let's see if that fixes it. Just a semicolon. See if a semicolon kind of messed it up. And also, you know what? I'm not sure about this. Even though it brought up a small a, I'm going to put a capital A there. Well, let's just wait and see if this is okay. So I'll save this, and then I'll go back, and I don't think I have to open in browser again. I should be able to refresh this, and I'll do show image, and it's not showing my random image. So let's go back and troubleshoot some more, and let's check that this is okay. Image source equals, everything there looks okay. And one thing you can check out, here's, you can do this. You can do an inspect here, and you can kind of check things out. And here, if I go to my console, I'm getting some errors. And reference error, array is not defined. So something with my array, ran image array, show it. So I did something here. So it's saying a problem here with the array. So maybe that is maybe it is the capital A. It kind of hinted at the small a, but let me do this. Maybe it's just that. I'll do the capital A there, and I'll save it, and I'll go back to my browser, and I'll refresh, and I'll just see console, see if I still have error, and I don't have errors. So that was it. Wow, that was odd that it actually hinted at the small array, and then I used it. I should have known not to trust that. But more importantly is that I was able to use this to troubleshoot, that you don't just have to figure out through your code. And what I did, again, just to show you, is I right clicked and I did inspect, and I'm in Chrome, and it brings up this, it shows you your different elements. So it shows you the DOM. Now, if you wonder what the DOM is, that's the document object model. That's what's generated after the page is generated. Because remember, we didn't have anything in that div area, but now we do. Image source equals images scissors. So right now there's a scissor. So that's this. The DOM is the HTML that's being generated when the page gets generated. And you'll see that more when we work with PHP, because it sometimes generates a whole page. But because we didn't have anything here, like our HTML file didn't have images scissors in there, it only got generated in there, when we did this, when the JavaScript did that. So JavaScript is creating elements in the DOM. So that's our HTML. But if we go to console, our console we can print things to the console like we did in CodePen, but we can also see errors here. So it alerted me to some errors right off the bat, and I knew to check that capital A there. So I guess it's good I didn't change it, so I knew everything else was okay. So there's my random images. I could keep, every time I click this, it'll show a different random image. And actually, notice how the images are right up against here. That's because I don't have a paragraph would have created a little more space in between there. So if I wanted to, I could go back and I could just make this thing in my HTML. I could just make this a P. That'll give a little more division in there, because paragraphs by default have like extra space above and below, like margins in there. So I'll just put that back to a P. So if I save that and I go back to my browser and I refresh it, you can see it has a little more, now there's a little more space in there. So it looks, because this is inside a paragraph. These things are inside a paragraph. So I'll close this up. I'll close up my console right now. So I'm showing an image. And then all that I'll want you to do, I don't have to go through doing this, is you're going to create a second function. Remember, you could copy, you're going to copy all of this except for you don't need a random number. And then the image source is just going to be empty. You're going to create a second function that says hide image. And then you're going to just copy this button and put a second button that says hide image. And the label can say hide image, and it could be right next to it. You could even go and put ampersand NBSP semicolon, that's a non-breaking space, and do a couple of those there. That'll put a little separation. That way you can have one button that shows and one that hides. So that's basically your ran image array. So I unintentionally gave you a little lesson on troubleshooting. And that's why I like sometimes just kind of doing this kind of cold, because then if problems come up, you could see how I figure them out. I don't have it all scripted out. So, and again, some of the only new things here was this little variable x, just to kind of break this into two parts. So you could just do x.innerHTML. You don't have to have this real long line, which sometimes gets a little complicated. And these things are a little complicated. There's probably easier ways to do it. But for now, if you know how to do that, we're using innerHTML to display an image on a page, and that's fine. We'll find other ways to do that. And that's our random image array. We're going to do more with this and make up a little game where we get points based on how many times you win or lose. Because remember, rock, paper, and scissors is a game where one of them always kind of beats out the other. So they always have like a certain rank over the other. One isn't on top, but one always beats out the other at one point. So they're almost kind of even. So we're going to do that next. But for EX11, you can do this. What you're going to do is once you're done, is you make sure you save this. And then you're gonna take this folder and zip it, because I'm gonna need to see your images if you don't send me the images. So once you're done, you're gonna compress your folder as a zip, and you're gonna send it to me on eLearning. And I'll put instructions on the instruction sheet to do that. But you're just gonna zip your E11 folder once you're done. So what I want to remind you is, if you download it in a zipped format and you unzipped it, which you have to do, make sure you get rid of the zip so that you don't have two zips in there and you get confused. So the only other zip you're going to have in that folder is going to be the one that you're going to upload back to me. So remember to do that, and I'll put that in instructions. So that's part 2, and that's the end of EX11 random image array.